So first of all, I really like to thank the organization putting this together. I think it's one of the great events here in Silicon Valley. So I'm very happy. And secondly, I also thank you for coming here. I'm Adriaan Ligtenberg. I am the executive chairman of Icehouse. And we are a company that really helps people build their mobile apps, if it are startups or big companies. My fellow speaker is Jarad. You ready? Jarad Gilmore. He's the business development guy here in Icehouse. And so he works really with most of the companies and really makes things happen. Okay, Jarad, let's just start.
Great. You went a little quick there, so sorry.
So,
alrighty. So today we're here to talk to you about how to build a winning app. And so to better understand what winning means, I just want to run through some quick numbers with you guys. And
Jarad doesn't. Can you hear Jarad?
Hello? Hello? Hey.
Okay, higher.
Okay. So I don't know what you guys just heard, so I'll start all over. So we're here today to talk about how to build a winning app. And to better understand what winning means, I just want to run through some quick numbers with you guys. So over 2 million apps are in the App Store and Play Store alone. So there's a whole lot of competition out there. A quarter of about 1 in 4 apps downloaded once and never used again. 50% of the apps lose half of their peak users after just 3 months, right? So getting the users is hard enough in the first place. Retaining them and keeping them engaged is a whole other thing, and it's easily just as hard, if not harder. In 2013, there was over 1 billion apps downloaded, and the point that we're trying to make is that it's very hard to build an app, and it's very hard to succeed. So
what this really means is winning. So winning for us really means is there is commercial success in really launching your app and doing the app. And I think, what does it mean, commercial success? Means either you have lots of users, you have a good way to monetize this, or you have VCs that want to invest in your company. So that is what we really mean with a winning app.
Right, so whether you're a biz dev guy, you're a marketer, you're a developer, the first thing is when you're brainstorming ideas, you need to know the phone. You need to know the capabilities of the phone. There's all these wonderful sensors in the phone, things like the accelerometer, the gyroscope, the microphone, the touch display, a Bluetooth technology, Wi-Fi. They can all be used and taken advantage of to build wonderful applications. But what's really cool is it's not just restricted to the phone itself anymore. And so there's a ton of technologies that exist outside of the phone itself that you can build wonderful applications to interact with your environment, with your surroundings. Some of those technologies that we have here are like beacons, which are used for proximity. You can scan media and signage that exists in the real world. You have applications that work with your vehicle, applications that work with like Fitbit or Nike Plus that tell you your health and fitness. You even have apps that interact with your thermostat, and we're actually building an app that interacts with furniture. So it's really, really cool. To understand and to brainstorm the ideas, understand what's possible in the first place. So now that you have some brainstorming, you've done some brainstorming, you have an idea, now what? What's the first thing you should do? The very first thing you should do, and if it's a good idea, and only if it's a good idea, you should submit your idea to Icehouse for the chance to win $50K worth of investment to build your application. And so we are doing a competition, everybody, in the booth. Our booth is over there by the main stage, and you can submit your ideas to us, and we'll build your app if it's really good.
So, but be a little more serious about it. So if you really create your app, I think there are a couple of very important points that you really have to take into account. The first one is you really know what your really app is, and you have to be able to describe it in 1 or 2 sentences. The second one is you really also want to know for who you're building your app. So these are the 2 ones. The next one is why now? Most of the startups are too early. So you spend your time too early, you have to educate the market is not right. For example, if you want to do video streaming in a country that doesn't have an LTE network, you can be quick there, but really the big push will be there if there is enough bandwidth available to really push your video. Yeah? And the last kind of things is, what you really need to do is, you know, you have to have something special that nobody else has. Why it is you that can execute it. You know, you see so many people around, ideas, there are multiple people, similar ideas. Yeah? There are multiple people trying to get the timing right. So why is it you? What is what you understand that makes the difference to be successful?
Right, and a little bit going off of that, so we're getting a lot of submissions for the competition. And what we see a lot is people who get discouraged when they realize that the idea they're pursuing is already in the App Store, or a version very similar to the idea is already in the App Store. And they say, oh no, the world's crashing all around me, my idea is already out there. And one of the things we tell them is, hey, look, it's not such a bad thing. The fact is, if somebody else has pursued your idea, and you can see a version of it or the exact same idea in the App Store, it validates the need for your application. So don't worry too much whether your idea has been done before or anything. The real key you want to ask yourself is, what are you going to do different that's going to allow you to win? And if you could answer that and you could figure that out, you'll be fine. So the next thing you got to do once you have your winning app idea is evaluate your technology options. So just look at around you, look at launch, it's fantastic. This ecosystem's awesome, right? There's a lot of great people creating a lot of great technologies, a lot of great companies creating a lot of great technologies. So the fact is, you don't need to reinvent the wheel constantly. As a developer, if you have an app idea that you're pursuing, utilize other great people's technologies where it counts or where you need it. Other great companies, it's their core competency to do certain things very, very well. The fact is at Icehouse, even Icehouse, we partner with great companies that handle aspects of our development process. And just for some examples so you guys can maybe look to them, Radium One does a fantastic analytics solution, and they help us with analytics. We work with Zenhavior, which does logistics handling for us. It's kind of like location tracking software. We work very closely with Gilmore, and we work closely with Vuforia, which are Qualcomm products. One's geolocation tracking, and then one's image recognition. But the point is, you partner with great companies where you need them.
Yeah, just to emphasize this point, I think it is all about going to the market quickly, and you really want to start using the best of breed, what's available to you. So even for Icehouse, our core competency is really engineering, building apps. Yeah? We also recognize there's a lot of other good people out there with really great products. And once you can use them, you should use them.
So kind of once you've evaluated your technology stack or you started this process, one of the first things you're going to be faced with is whether you develop an application using a framework like PhoneGap or Titanium or something along those lines, or you go native, right? And there's advantages or disadvantages to both, yeah?
Yeah, so just by show of hands, who has used a framework to create their app? Okay.
Right.
So I assume other people is all native? Please, who is using native? Raise your hands. Okay, so it means is half of the people don't build apps here. But anyway, go on.
All right, so it's our opinion that frameworks aren't great all the time or should only be used in certain instances. So if you're trying to build an application and you're trying to do it rather quickly or you have a tight budget, frameworks can be good. Or if you're building a short lifespan application that is only going to last for a set period of time and you know it, frameworks can really help you there. But the fact is they're restrictive. Oftentimes they result in slower applications. There's dependency risks or reliability concerns that happen. To some degree, it's hard to count on them over the long term. On the other hand, native is only as good as you are, and I want to emphasize that point. It's only as good as you are, which means if you're not a great developer, you might want to shy more towards the framework side of things. If you are really good, then you can make the most of native and build a fantastic application. It's like starting with a clean slate, right? You have more flexibility, you can build fast and responsive applications, more capabilities, you could take advantage of more technologies within the phone, and then they're great for long lifespan applications over the long term.
Yeah, so Jarad, I think we have been very kind here, but I think our opinion is really you should do native. And one of the most important things is not only that you want to get the app out quickly, what you really want to do is you want to keep engaging your customer. So it means is you want to keep building on what you have built. app development never stops. You get your first MVP out, but then you want to be able to iterate quickly to get your second one and the third one. And even if Apple changes their iOS or there comes a new kind of Android version out, you want to be able to continue on the code that you built. Frameworks has the big disadvantages that you don't know where you end up.
Right, so once you've determined that you're going to be, by our standards, developing on native, you have to determine the platform you're going to go with, right? So your options are pretty obvious. You have Apple, you have Android, you have Windows, you have BlackBerry. Oh, looks like BlackBerry went away, so BlackBerry, oh, he came back, BlackBerry's back, so that's good. BlackBerry went away for a little while, so it's not one of our more popular platforms. But we do develop across all platforms. The main point you want to look for when you're choosing your platform to develop on is develop on one platform at a time. A lot of clients come to us and they say, hey, we want to develop an iOS application and the Android application at the same exact time. And we say, whoa, slow down a little bit. You up your risk when you decide to develop on two platforms at once. When you develop on one platform and you focus on one platform, you're able to test it with users, you're able to see what happens, and if you need to make a change or you need to backtrack, you're able to go back on one platform. Essentially, it reduces your risk. If you ask me what platform you want to develop on first, right? You say, I'll develop on Android first, or iOS first, or Windows first. Just bluntly, I'll tell you 4 out of 5 times, I'll tell you develop on iOS first. And a couple of reasons, we could go into detail on this, but I don't have time. A couple of reasons, it's got the wealthiest user base out there. So if you're looking to monetize your app, go iOS first. It's great for design, reliable apps. It's a structured environment. Android can be a bit difficult, and that's why I recommend doing it after you've done iOS. There's a lot of devices, a lot of different factors that come into play, and it's really best after you've done iOS. You good?
I think you said it all.
Okay, good. So once you got your technology options and you understand kind of what you're doing, you need to think about the financials, obviously. At some point, they come into play, unfortunately. So when you work with it, if you're a developer yourself, your cost is the opportunity cost of your time. But if you go to a development shop and you say, hey, I want to build this application, they're either going to confront you with a fixed price bid or they're going to give you an hourly rate, which is time and materials. We tend to do time and materials and support time and materials more because it's in line with agile development. Fixed price bids are more in line with waterfall development. And just to be clear, waterfall development is kind of when you push everything all at once. It's a slower, it's a less agile process. The other problems that we see with fixed pricing is that the unknowns invalidate the plan. That the fact is when you develop an app, and I can tell you the single best thing to develop a winning app is to iterate, is to test while you're building the product, test it, put it in the hands of users, and then make adjustments on the fly. Make sure that you do it in an iterative process. Fixed pricing also locks you into the scope, which means that you can't make those necessary adjustments when you need to make them. Developers will take the fixed price bid, but then when you want to make changes later on, when you discover something, it'll be difficult, and it'll result in more problems than you want to get into. The advantage to fixed pricing is that you have preset cost exposure and you know what you're going to get. So that's the reason to go fixed pricing. You know what you're going to pay and you know what you're going to get. You'll have a fixed scope. But one point I want to emphasize and want to make it very clear is developers are incentivized to spend less time when they do fixed pricing, right? The incentive is for them to essentially take less time, reduce the costs, right? It's a quality risk for the client. On the time and materials side, it's in line with agile methodologies. The reason why is because you pay by the hour, right? So you're able to maneuver quickly. You're able to get out of the project when you want to get out of the project. You're able to change the scope of the project when you want to change the scope of the project. The obvious concern with time and materials, especially on the client side, is, well, what happens if the cost goes out of whack, right? There's a cost concern with time and materials. So what I would say is only work with companies that are fully transparent. If they're going to offer you time and materials, they have to be fully transparent. They have to tell you what the developers are spending their time on and how much time they're spending on it. And then that way you could track the budget, you can stay in line that way.
Yeah, so just add on this, I think I cannot iterate or say it often enough, is it is really the quality of the code what allows you to iterate after your first iteration quicker. Yeah? So really make sure that one part you want to be lean and mean and agile. So it means is you have to get to the market with minimal features. Everybody agrees with that now. But the next one is you want to be also very quickly and flexible to adjust once you are on the market, because that is where most apps are failing at this moment. So when you really think about it, if you use fixed price or your other, per hour kind of price, make sure that one of the most important thing is that you can change it as soon as you go to market and be flexible.
All right, so now you guys know your technology options, you kind of know the financials involved. So you have to get into design and development, which is obviously the meat and potatoes of developing an application. So I hinted at it before, and the single best thing you can do is define your MVP up front, right? Focus on the core value of the application. You don't, all the extra features, you can worry about at a later time. So the best way of going about this process, and as you can see, this is an example from one of the apps we're currently working on, and it's an app that will integrate with these little stools you see right here. We'll put sensors in the stools, and it'll allow you to monitor your posture and things like that. So when we were coming up for the brainstorming for the MVP, what we did was we said, hey, lay out all of the features you can think of. Dream big. Sorry. Dream big. Put down all of the features you can think of, right? Then you want to ruthlessly prioritize. Cross out all of the extras. You want to get down to the core value of the application. So the idea is dream big, implement small. Once you have that, you can start to design the application. So you have these wireframes, and literally we sketched out the applications on a piece of paper for this one. Oftentimes, whether you're creative, I don't know, use a tool online, just get the ideas down on the paper to start. The next phase is designing the application, and as you can see, it evolved into what looks like a normal application. We're actually still in development on this application, and it'll be out pretty soon. Do you have anything to say on Zami?
Yeah, no, I think once again, I think Jarad, you said it right, is from, in this application, one of the most important things to us is from, we want to make sure, because there's kind of a high-end chair that this allows you to active sitting, means is if you sit, you're directly using your core muscles, so, and it also really improves your posture. So we want to make sure that people know where to test it. So rather than selling this online, we really want to sell, they really want to sell this in the high-end stores. So important was to make this app where people could find where they can use it, where they can test it. So there will be their stores where you can see it and go sit on it. There will be yoga centers where they're using it in their yoga kind of exercises. There will be sports schools where they use it in their sports kind of training. So we want to make sure that's there, because then people know where to buy it.
Right, so once you go through design and development and you kind of have your initial designs, you have to evaluate the quality, and it's always should be quality, but you got to evaluate how and how much. So to get at that idea, we developed the Star Trek Into Darkness mobile application for Paramount Pictures. And it was a giant application, and we launched it with a Super Bowl ad where we had to expect up to, I think it was 1 million potential downloads in just a few minutes' time. And so when we were preparing for this, we had to simulate that environment. And what we did was we went out and we actually simulated the stress test to make sure that we could handle it. You know, when you're working with a client like that, if we screwed it up, we'll frankly end up like face down in a gutter somewhere. So we just had to make sure, and we had to test right to make sure that it would actually hold once the real event actually happened. But there's other ways to test too. Obviously, all of us can't afford that high-end level of testing where you have everybody and their mother looking into it. So for agile testing, and it works often best with a soft launch, right? And a soft launch means that you don't come out in one big pow. You put the app in the hands of users, and it's what's called a customer discovery phase. And in the soft launch, you're able to test, and you're able to see what they say, and you can make the necessary adjustments. This is less financially impactful, and it's more cost effective and in line with Agile. So to wrap it up, since we're out of time, we just kind of went through some of the more details on how you guys can build an application, a winning application. But I want to emphasize that it really comes down to execution. It comes down to you. You can have a fantastic idea, and as you can see in this display, if you look to the screen, you have two columns. You have awful idea, weak idea, all the way up to brilliant idea. And on the right, you have no execution, weak execution, all the way up to brilliant execution. If you multiply the two columns, you kind of see the value of what the idea is worth versus what the execution is worth. So a brilliant idea with no execution is worth only $20. A so-so idea with brilliant execution is worth $50 million. A brilliant idea with brilliant execution can be worth $200 million. The point is, execution is more valuable than the idea itself. So if you have a so-so idea, just trust that you can execute, and you'll build a winning application.
Yes, and almost done. Yeah. So the last one is from. First of all, thank you. Yeah. So I think we really encourage people to really dream big, because that's what startups is all about. Secondly is, we are there to help you build it, yeah? And together we have to execute, because as Jarad really said, execution is the most important one. And for the rest, I think from Jarad, leave it up to you.
Yep. Hey, if you guys want to talk to us, come down to our booth and we'll follow up with questions and answers. Thanks.